You are listening to the People Centric podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, People Centric leaders. This is Don Harkey. I was going for a walk the other day, and I like to go for walks in the morning. And it's time, first of all, to get some exercise. I'll walk at a pretty good pace, and I just walk around my neighborhood most of the time. And a lot of times I'll put on like a podcast or something like that, and I use it to learn something new, or sometimes I'll use it to think about like what my day is going to be like and how I'm going to attack the day, all the things. And it's a good way to get kind of set up and get some physical activity in the morning. And we recently had a session with a friend of ours, Andy, who is kind of our team therapist. I'll say it like that. She's a professional therapist, and she works with several people on our team as kind of a benefit of working at People Centric. And she came and talked to our team as a whole about some of the just normal stress that we encounter in our job. A lot of the stuff that we do, everybody encounters stress at work, but we work with a lot of teams and people who are struggling with stuff. And when you do that all day long, that adds a little bit of extra stress. It's seldom when we call a company or a client and they're like, "Yep, everything's great, everything's fine." People call us when, okay, things are not this is great over here, but I need some help over here. How can we solve this problem? And it kind of wears on us. So we have to figure out how to manage that. So we brought her in to have a conversation about that. And she talked about getting in your head or getting outside of your head. And we thought it was a pretty cool concept. So we wanted to bring that here. And I'm going to tie it back to my walk, because one of the things that she talked about is getting in your head of saying, okay, you're always thinking about stuff. You're thinking about work. You're thinking about home. You're thinking about all the things you need to do versus just experiencing life on the outside. Like what is life on the outside doing? And so she talked about like walking in nature and all those types of things. And I thought, well, I go for walks every day. And Andy asked me, well, what do you do when you're going for a walk? Like, what's in your head? And I'm like, what's in my head is, oh, I got a meeting coming up today and I got to do this, this, and this, or thinking about details, or listening to a podcast and trying to learn something new or whatever. That's what's in my head. But you said like there's moments that you just need to reconnect with reality around you. And one of the things that Stephanie on our team suggested was she said she likes to run her hands under cold water. And I said, well, that's a pretty cool idea. So it just kind of shocks you into the moment. I said, it's kind of like running through a cold sprinkler. So the next day I'm out for my normal walk and I'm walking and I've decided like I'm going to try to reconnect. So I'm just playing some music now in my headphones, but I'm playing like music that's more background music that I know. So I'm not really getting into the music kind of thing, but and I'm trying to walk. I'm just trying to pay attention to things that are happening around me. And I saw some weird things. I saw two rabbits that were running around. One of the rabbits ran around this mail post and this bird was just standing there watching these two rabbits. And the rabbit ran around the mail post and saw the bird and it scared the rabbit and not the bird. And I just thought that was funny. Like I normally wouldn't have seen that. I would have walked right by that. And then at one point I walked up to a point in the walk and the neighbor's sprinkler system was on and it was sprinkling over the sidewalk. And so mindlessly, I just started to kind of walk around it like I would normally do. And I thought to myself, wait a second, I just talked about this. So I took off my glasses and I stuck them in my pocket and I walked through the sprinkler in the morning. And the cold water hits me. And, it's the summertime and it's hot outside here in Springfield. So, I mean, it was already almost 80 degrees first thing in the morning. And it felt great. Like it felt really, really good. But before that, I was really struggling to keep focused on not getting focused, of just enjoying the time around me and looking around me. But when the sprinkler hit me, it was like it shocked me back into reality and it felt really amazing. Like it was it was truly refreshing, not just physically, but mentally for myself. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Like what is being in your own head? How do you get out of your head? What's the benefit of that? So that's what we're going to do today. So we've got Diana and Philip here from our team to talk about this. We usually like to do the voices. So Diana, can we distinguish your voice between Philip and I so everybody who's not watching us on YouTube can distinguish?
Sure. I was gonna do like a Mickey Mouse voice or something because you said, can we do the voices? And I was like, sure. I don't know. It didn't.
I was thinking of a song like The Voice, like singing,
Oh,
"Oh, I'm
yeah.
on the ooh," like Old MacDonald or the Star Spangled Banner. But I don't
You're
sing,
fine.
so I'd have just said them like that. Yeah,
Okay, well, that'll be a future episode. We'll do that for Diana and Philip.
voices.
Thanks.
That voices. That'll be a lot of fun. So the first question is like, what does it mean to be in your head? Like, what are we talking about when we say in your head? Because when I first heard that term, frankly, I was just thought, well, where else do you live? Like, where else do you go?
What do you do? How do you not be in your head?
How do you
Yeah, I
not be in
think
your
the
head?
difference is like everyone has an inner monologue. That's not what we're talking about here. Like everyone kind of, well, not, I guess not everyone. Most people have an inner monologue where you talk to yourself about things in your head. But I think the difference here is when you are not in the moment. You're not thinking about what's going on in front of you. You're thinking about 20 things that either happened in your day or are going to happen in your day or both. When you're just not present and you're just sort of there's things that are floating out there that you are ruminating on instead of being in the moment and present where you are.
I like that definition. He said, what does it look like? And not everybody has an inner monologue. And I was going to say this, but Matt's not on, so I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyways. I was going to say Matt's inner monologue is the theme song to Cheers. And my
We
making your
have very
way in the
different
world
ideas
today.
of what his inner monologue looks like.
That's what
That'll
that
count.
is.
That counts as good gossip because Matt's great with human beings, and that's a great image. And he's
Okay.
not here, but that I think that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
Good job.
Building the relationships.
That's
Those
right. People centered. People centric.
Sometimes you
Nice.
get away. Yeah. So like if you're in your head, like what are you like? I like that. So like you're blocking out the outside world. So like other things can be happening, but you're not really watching things that are happening on the outside world. So like when you go for a walk, like you're not noticing stuff, right? But if you're at work, you're in the zone, right? And other things are happening around you and you're missing like just some of the things that are happening. Um, what does outside the zone look or what side does outside your head look like?
I love your walk example because it's not just that you're there, but it's that it sounds cliche to say you're present while you're there. But maybe our Herzog example, thanks to Diana royalty. This year was the year of the dog for us. We got a dog. He is related to Diana and Jimmy's dogs. So we say that we're now family, which is very cool.
And
And
Chewbacca somehow. I don't know how
yeah,
he's related to
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca, but
Yeah.
the resemblance is uncanny.
It's uncanny. We basically bought a little Star Wars character or an Ewok. He's travel size Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Best little animal in the world. And there's something about, if there are, whether it's a stressful moment, anyone who has a dog, you can experience this. If you have a cat, that's a totally different thing. It doesn't help you be present because cats are never present themselves. But I think it's just the difference between a cat and a dog. All cat lovers are not going to like this analogy, but a dog is just there, like the second I open the door, our little dog is just like there and ready. And I think even for ourselves, Claire and I notice if we've been really busy, whether it's just stress or being in our heads, based on our own little dog, just like the way he'll come up to us. If it's been a really long time of us not being really present, even though we're physically there, he lets us know, with like a bop of his nose or he wants to play. He just will stare at us until we then give him attention. And I think not that people are dogs, but I think it is a similar, like a measure, I guess you could say, when I'm with people and I suddenly realize, oh, like I am not actually here with them. They don't bop me the way my dog does. But I think there's signals, right? And you're like, oh, okay, let me like zone back in and be here. And your example of like put things to the side so you can really be with someone. And so I think that means you not only just listen and engage better, but I think it's also when you leave. Like you specifically remembered a rabbit and a bird that you probably have seen many rabbits and birds on your walks, but they didn't really stick out to you. But when you're present, I think these things connect to you better when you are thinking back on what happened.
Yeah, a dog going for a walk sure notices all that stuff. Right? They notice everything that's happening around here. There's a butterfly, there's a bug, there's a sun, there's all that stuff. Yeah, it's really easy to I was thinking of a video I saw recently where there was a concert violinist who plays for, if you go to see him play and play a concert, you're going to pay, hundreds of dollars for a ticket. And he went to like Grand Central Station or something and just set up in the middle and just dressed like a regular person and did his concert out in the middle of everybody. And they showed the camera of everybody just walking by him and not even stopping, not even thinking, not even taking a moment to realize like there's a virtuoso violinist playing beautiful, beautiful music. right there in the middle, but you're just walking by. One of the things that I thought was cool about that video too, side note, was that the ones who stopped the most were the kids. Like it's the children who are walking, who are in the moment, who are looking around and trying to absorb things. It's like it's kind of a learned activity to get in your head and to think of things. So is it bad to be in your head? Like I'm sure some people are listening to that. Like, is it bad to live in your head?
I hope not, because I am there a lot. So I hope not. I think it's perfectly natural for people to do this, to think about the things that are going on in their day, to think about the next meeting, to think about, what you're going to make for dinner tonight, right? It's a form of multitasking, if you want to put it that way. So I think it's perfectly normal, and I think everyone's going to do it. But I do think there's a lot of value to, when you need to be present, figuring out how do you do that well and how you can get out of your head, because we're so trained, I guess, mentally trained to be in our head. Like it's a constant. So unless you're actively trying not to be, it's a little hard not to be. So I think there's value in figuring out, how do I not be when I want to not be?
I was thinking there's probably some people that I've known in my life that I'm like, you probably could use a little more time in your head. Like you should spend some more time. You should think about like where you're think about your life a little more than you do. Right? Plan things a little more. Think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I guess what's the benefit of getting out of your head then? So like why are we saying that it's because I think what we're describing is a natural human condition. So we often talk in people centric about the science of the things of why we work, how we relate to each other, how we communicate. But then we turn it around to the engineering and say like how do we use the science? We're you could say we're flawed as humans. I don't like to think we're flawed. We're designed the way we're supposed to be designed. The question is like, how do we manage that design? So we're supposed to work in our heads sometimes, so that's not bad, but what's the benefit of getting out of our heads every once in a while?
I won't speak on behalf of Diana, but I know we both like a good plan, a good outline. And so, as someone who empathizes with that, anyone who's listening who's like, I need a plan before I start something, I totally get that. And I think that's the challenge for leaders too. If you're like, hey, we have a specific initiative, or we have some really specific goals, and I have this, or I'm about to have a hard conversation, and I have the end in mind, and I've planned this out. I think the challenge is to still know where you're going, but then to also still be with people in reality as it is happening. And I think that's one of the cool things that we get to help people do. Lots of really brilliant ideas. A lot of them come from people's own heads, but it's how they share those with others. So whether it's getting a bunch of different people together for a step team, different teams and departments together, I think that's one thing that helps kind of hack our in the head, because there's a new person talking to you about something that you may not have thought of before. And so it literally forces you to be in the moment if you're engaged. And so I think there's some practical things that help you do that, but leaning into a goal in mind and also making it real and interesting in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I know that like I'm in my head a lot. And if I'm in my own head all of the time, I'm the only voice that I'm hearing. And I think that that's a huge disservice to whatever else is happening, because I should hear other people's ideas and thoughts and feelings, and I should get other people's input. And if I'm too much in my head, that even if they're giving me that input, I'm not necessarily hearing it, right? I'm not really processing it. So it is important to like shake it out and be like, okay, I'm going to be present in this moment and really hear someone and really take their thoughts into account and put those thoughts into my head so that I can later be in my head with their thoughts too.
Have you guys ever had the experience? And maybe this is an opportunity for both of you to say, no, Don, you're nuts. You're crazy right now. But like I will be driving to work, and if I get really, really lost, like I'll be anticipating something that's going to happen at work, and I will start to play it out in my head. And I can put the characters of the people who I'm going to be meeting with in the room, and I will actually can get like mad at what's going to happen or excited about what's going to happen with, and it hasn't even happened yet in my head, but I'm actually having an emotional, like visceral response to what's going to happen. And early in my career, I didn't even know that I was doing that. And I would go into a meeting and I would be like, I'm about to present to this group. Like when I was in 3M, I can remember several meetings. I'm going to present to this group of engineers. And I know this one engineer is going to probably poke a hole in it. And when they do, they probably are going to they're doing it because they really hate me and all this other stuff. And I'd be mad going into the meeting. And then the meeting would come up. And then that one engineer would raise their hand and say, I just have a quick question. And I would shoot it down because it was like, It's like I was already there. Like, I already know what you're gonna do. You're shut up. It's not gonna be. And people in the room would be like, "What is wrong with you?" Have you guys ever had anything like that, or am I just need some more help?
Nope, nope. Unfortunately, I think it's pretty normal. I have whole conversations with people in my head, like I play it out, and yeah, every time I actually have the conversation, it does not go the way that my brain thought it was going to go. Like, not a single time has it actually gone the way that my brain said it was going to go in the conversation that I had in my head. Yeah,
And there's some benefit to doing that, right? So like you're
sure.
thinking ahead, you're thinking about what things do I need to know, but there's going too far, I think is what we're saying. Like if you stay in it so long that you trigger all the emotional, visceral responses to everything, then it starts to create stress and it creates anxiety, which then doesn't put you in the right mindset, right? We talk about living in your limbic system, which is the emotional side, versus like your neocortex, which is your logical side. Like we have to be careful about all of that.
One of the things that's powerful too, and Diana said this, if you're the only one in your head, you're only hearing one voice. And there's something to, I think, throwing it in the appropriate way at the appropriate time, whoever that might be. Getting those thoughts out of your own head, I think, is also when the reality of like how close to reality that is or isn't comes to light. So especially if you've imagined this terrible, crazy situation where that other engineer at the other end of the conference table is going to bring up that stupid idea that I know they're going to bring up. Instead of cutting them off, if you let them talk, you're like, maybe it is a stupid idea. But it'll probably filter itself out with wonderful leadership and influence. Or it's a great idea. And you're like, oh, I actually would have cut that off and undermined a bunch of opportunity that could have happened. So I think that's the other part of, helping people know how to say and do these things, which we talk about psychological safety a lot of times. I think it ties into this a little bit. It kind of gives the space for someone to get out of their head and bring things out to a team as well. If you feel safe in being able to do that, you actually can create a much better team and a much better performance.
Yeah, I like that. Andy said something I thought was really good yesterday, or when she came into our team, she said, like, when she's getting those emotions and you're in a moment, she has like, you feel the emotions, and she always envisions like a closet. And she's like, I'm going to take the emotion out of my head, I'm going to put it in the closet. And so that because I can't deal with that right now, I'm going to put this over here. And I think if you live in your head too much, like your closet's filling up. Like that the emotional responses are coming up, but you're filling up the closet. And it's that closet, like our closet. We have the coat closet in the front of our room, and it has like there's only 4 people that live in my house, and there are 117 coats in there. I don't know where all the coats have been or gone. And I feel like we donate coats. Like I feel like we give those away, but it just like stuff just goes in there and it never comes out. It's like the Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave kind of stuff. And that stuff that there's a word for that. I think when your closet gets too full of what it causes. And I think the word is anxiety. It causes anxiety. So she talked about.
You cut out, Don.
Don, you said she talked about and go.
Yeah, she talked about how you can when you ground yourself and you get back to reality, then you can think better about you can kind of reset. It's like a reset for your brain. It doesn't clean out the closet, by the way. It just helps you to reset and go like, okay, I'm in this reality, and it helps you to put away all of that stuff for a little bit longer. So it helps you to I like reset as a good word. It puts you into a different mindset. And then once you're in that mindset, step 2 is later you have to go back to the closet. You have to go back and you have to check out the stuff. So like, well, that's one of the things that we talked about as a team is if we have a whole day, if Philip has a whole day of dealing with several difficult clients, and Diana has a whole day of dealing with several difficult clients, and I have the same day, and we're all carrying those things, and we all just take them home with us, and we never talk about it, and we never address those things, then it creates a problem. It creates anxiety for all of us, and it creates stress, and you get things like what was the word? The fatigue,
Passion fatigue.
Fatigue.
you get compassion fatigue. Thank you both. Yeah, you get compassion fatigue. That's what triggers compassion fatigue is I'm trying to be compassionate all day long. So, but you're putting your feelings in the closet for so long that your closet can't hold anything anymore. And then you say, I can't be compassionate anymore. So it's kind of a 2-step process of check out. You got to check out. You got to get regrounded in reality. That resets your brain to allow you to be in a good mental state to be able to handle that. And then you got to open the closet with others. So the question, yeah, go ahead, Diana.
When I was gonna say, if you don't open that closet, like it's gonna pop open on its own in a place that is weird that you don't really want it to open, and it's gonna happen. It actually weirdly happened to me last night. It's my house has been a mess. I have contractors here. It's loud, it's dirty, it's dusty, everything's out all over the place. Work's been pretty busy, and we've had some high stress clients, and my friends are going through stuff. And yesterday I was at Lowe's in the very back corner looking for something, and their lights shut off. It went dark at Lowe's. And I stood there for a second, and when the lights came back on, I was like, oh my God, I'm incredibly overwhelmed and overstimulated, and I cannot do this right now. Like I can't. And my husband was like, what do you mean you can't? And I was like, I cannot make another decision. I'm about to cry. Like I'm just overwhelmed and overstimulated. He was like, what about the lights did that? And I was like, I don't know. I was stuffing it all in and the lights turned off and then I couldn't stuff it anymore. So like it will pop out when you don't want it to if you're not going back and checking on it.
That's a really, really good example. And I think everybody can relate to that. And maybe not the Lowe's thing. And also I have this is stuck in my head, so I have to say it. I have to get this one out of my closet. Is I've got friends in Lowe's places, is what I wanted to say.
Oh, come on. I was gonna say that was a low point for you, wasn't it? But I'm sorry.
So good. So
Or
good.
that was keeping things on the lights down low. I had that too in my head. I don't know the puns that had flowing. That's how we deal with the stress. That's what
Yeah.
we do.
Comedy, pun
But
comedy. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Philip, have you ever had like that stuff come out in weird places, like places you don't expect? Like if that stress comes out?
Have I ever? Also, last night, actually, it's been a week of this. I was with a good friend. We were at a mutual friend's concert performance. Friends with lots of crazy music people. And so he's in from out of town. This middle school choir sounded like a college choir. It was so good. And my friend and I normally are at this really great wavelength, and you're so excited to see people. But at one point, I looked over and he was just on his phone. And I thought, that's so uncharacteristic of him. That's also weird. But the part of the reason I noticed it, I was like, I just want to be on my phone, candidly, right? I can listen to these young middle school people sing and enjoy my phone. So we were talking in the parking lot afterward more for a longer time than we were in this concert, actually. And it was similar. I think we both just needed that place for each other. It really worked out well. But super similar to what Diana was saying, where I think there's moments where if you're filled to the brim and you just get the wrong bump, you're like, oh, whoa, I noticed what comes out and maybe I can work on that. So it's probably not a monster in the closet, but when your closet gets that full, it can feel monstrous to open it up.
Oh yeah. There's times like I'll drive home. I'll be driving home and I love to listen to music driving home. And just the right song will come in at the right time and it just like triggers something. And you're just like suddenly super emotional. I can be, and that goes different ways. But yeah, I've had it like especially after I lost my dad. I don't know how many times I'll be driving home or driving to work and you just like the wrong song comes on or the right song comes on, whatever you want to say. And it just like has to come out. It just has to come out. So that's why we're talking about this because it's something that a lot of us are struggling with anxiety. It's your closet's too full. We got to figure that out. The other analogy I know I used yesterday, the way I think about it, because I've been in therapy for a little while, is like it's the rocks in your shoe. The rock in your shoe is not a big deal at all. Everybody's got a rock in their shoe. And you think, okay, I got a rock in my shoe. It's not a big deal unless you leave the rock in your shoe. If you leave the rock in your shoe, you're going to start to favor that foot. It's going to create a little bit of a blister. And if it creates a blister, you're going to start to walk differently. If you start walking differently, it's going to throw your hips out. If it throws your hips out, it probably throws your back out. Maybe you stop walking altogether. And I mean, it just takes on these like multiple effects. And I think that's what we're talking about here. So how do you get the rocks out of your shoe? How do you reset yourself? How do you get out of your own head?
I think I think there's a lot of different tactics. I love Stephanie when she said I run my hands underwater and just like feel the feeling and be present there. I have to do like a five senses thing. I'm like, what can I see, taste, hear, smell, and touch? Like just get me back to this moment. What can I do? And so I kind of think through those five senses and then it makes me very present. And then once I'm present, I can kind of be like, okay, what happened today that I need to talk about, that I need to process, that I need to look at? Like what happened that I need to open that closet and look in it? But I have to first find the reality of the moment and be present in it before I can go backwards, you know?
I like the idea that you don't have to figure out the rock. It's not about you. Step one is not take off the shoe and take a rock out. Step one is you have to notice, like you have to put yourself in a quiet enough place where you would notice the rock, right? Step one is just to take a second and just ground yourself, to look outside. I was in a series of meetings yesterday and it was like back to back. It's funny, it's the day afterwards. And we just talked about like not doing back to back to back to back meetings and I had back to back to back to back to back stuff. And I had a little bit of time. And I know Philip was up here and he watched me and I went up to the front of the office and I just sat down and right in the front of the office and just stared outside and like watched outside for a little while and just stared outside for like 4 or 5 minutes. And just a moment of it, it wasn't lost. It was hard to get not lost in thought. You can get lost in, okay, I got to unpack that in that moment and everything. But I was really worked hard to try to just like say, what am I observing outside? What's happening outside right now? Let's watch the people outside. Let's try to watch the nature. A lot of people respond well to nature. Going on walks. Diana's got a beautiful park near where she lives out in Tacoma, Washington, that you can go out there and watch the seals out in the water and occasionally the killer whales when you have visitors, right? We got to see that. That
Yeah.
was
I do a water walk at least 3 times a week. So I feel like there's something about humans being near water, just like there's something calming about it. Yeah.
there's studies on that. There's people who live near water, like live longer and have less stress. Like I've read that before. And I never understood exactly why. Like it feels right, right? Like it just kind of feels right. But
Yeah.
I think it's because like if you walk by a lake, like you can't not, or the ocean, especially the ocean, you can't not look at it. Like you can't not like take that in. Uh, but we as humans are amazingly good at getting used to things. And I remember one time I was driving home, this was a few years ago, and it was the time of year where like it was the sun starting to go down at the time when you're driving home. And there were these really, really big clouds like off, and the sun was coming up, and the colors were spectacular. And I was about halfway home before I noticed it. And then I noticed it, and I was like, the sky is absolutely unbelievable right now. And then it occurred to me, like, I've been already out here for like 10 minutes and I haven't noticed that. Like, I was so lost in myself. Like, there's a spectacular thing going on. Like, literally, the most spectacular painting that you could ever see in your life happens right in the sky, right above you every single day. Unbelievable, vibrant colors, all the things. And it's like, and I was just missing it. I wasn't even looking at it and looking at it and catching that. Like, I remember this like years later of even that experience of catching that. And it was just a moment where you can just that's the reset moment. And then when you get to there, then you can start to think differently, right? Then it's actually quiet.
There really is. We have a phrase in our house when the mountain is out. Well, it's a phrase in the Pacific Northwest. It's called the mountain is out, right? And so when we're at home, we're like, is the mountain out? And it instantly brings you to the present. Like, I don't know, is it? We got to go find the mountain. We got to go see this beautiful, majestic thing. And when you're there, you can't not look at it. You can't not be present and be thinking about how beautiful that mountain is. And then it triggers us to like talk about other things. Because then it's like, oh, we're here now, we're looking at this beautiful thing. Now we can unpack some more stuff.
And knowing having been a visitor to Seattle several times in the last year and a half, I can tell you it is not.
The
Like
mountain is
that,
always out.
it is not there. It is always raining and always foggy.
We
That's
do think
true.
it's a fake mountain. I think that the moon landing, totally real, no doubts. But Mount Rainier, people talk about it. I've only ever seen it from the airplane. I think it's a filter on the airplane window, and it may not be real. But I'm glad you have an experience in your head where you thought you saw a mountain and that it meant something to you. But being from the mountains land, Colorado Rockies, that's one thing I think there's something about mountains or nature, whether it's the ocean or a lake or for our friends in Kansas, a powerful field of grain that goes on and on for as far as the eyes can see. I think there's something where it's something where if it helps anxiety, it's because in a way, it feels limitless. And I think anxiety usually comes from you feeling like you have a multitude of limits. And I think one of the challenges of this too is this understanding of, at least when I have a full closet or I'm feeling most anxious, all of us are probably works in progress on this too. But I think I've been framing it differently lately where I think, okay, like where do I feel like I'm hitting my limit, which is leading to this? And then like, is this a limit worth like either helping, like pulling someone in to help me then like overcome these limits and we're doing something better together? Or if I've hit my limit here, is it worth even going on? Like maybe accept some limits as gifts and then move on. I think that's the other part. If you're in your head too much about a lot of limits that can't change anyway, then you are in your head because you can't make a difference there. So find a place where you can.
Well, I think that's very well said, Philip. And if you think about it, like a lot of times when we think that we've got to fix ourselves, that's when we go into our head more because that's where you have to go look. But it's like, no, 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 you got to get out of it first and then get back into it. Like you have to reset for yourself. So I liked some of the tips that Andy gave, like during the course of the day. Like, so like you're at work. So like if it's real practical things of like when you can, like take a little break between things and ground yourself in reality, run your hands under some cold water, take a second. I posted this on LinkedIn and Christine put on there and said, hey, what she likes to do is she takes a piece of sour candy and she keeps it in her purse and she'll take a really sour candy and it just kind of shocks you into like, you can't not notice that, right? It pulls you into that. If you like nature, go for a walk, or even if you don't like nature, like we're in downtown Springfield, still go for a walk, go step outside, but give yourself a chance just to be where you're at. Or like if you've got a great team like we do, like one of the things that I think we do really well is that we give ourselves time during the day to spend time to unpack things. Let's talk about that, right? So you ground yourself in the reality, and then you also meet as a team and talk like, hey, that was difficult. You're not in problem solving mode. A lot of times I think our team does a really good job of this, of just saying like, hey, I was in this call and you're like, yeah, that must have been really hard. And yeah, they still haven't made these changes yet. And like, yeah, I know this is really struggle, and it's not, hey, we know when there's problem solving mode, which sometimes we get into, but sometimes it's just like, hey, listening. Yeah, let's struggle together and know that other people are part of this. What other tips you guys have just for people during the workday to get out of their own heads?
I think, like you said, it's important to take a break, go for a walk if you can go for a walk, even if it's like around a conference room table and you can just like move a little bit and because I do think that exercise and movement and that kind of stuff is really helpful for your brain. So I'm not saying you have to go run a marathon, but like do a couple of laps around the office. I think it'll totally reset how you're feeling about things.
Said this really sad image of somebody just walking around a conference table. I don't know why that struck me.
I used to walk around the conference table at People Centric a lot. And now I pace like my dining room table. Like there's just something about it that I like pace and it gets my brain thinking differently. I don't know.
That's good. I like that in terms of pacing around. Just go for a walk and just do something different.
Yeah.
Matt and I were talking recently after a presentation I gave with him. He went first, then I went in the middle, then he kind of wrapped it all up. And one of the things he shared with me, which was just very, very great. We talked about how it went in some areas, and one of his things was just like also have fun. And I think that again, not to just say like, oh, randomly have fun, everyone, everywhere, at all times. But I think if there's not an element of fun, I don't know how, Julie Andrews says it in the song, I can't remember, but
You
something about
find the fun and snap. The job's a game.
that's it. That's it, right? Perfect. I knew that Harky would pull it out. But there's a piece of it too. I think if work becomes to gets to the point, especially when you're doing work that is exciting and honoring, like especially for us, at least within the realm of what we do, we get to be in really amazing places with people who are working on very real things that make a difference in their lives. So that should be important, but having fun with that makes it not only more effective, but I think it also makes it just better for us. So I think there's whatever job you have in the world, there can be fun involved with that too.
I think that's really cool. I forget sometimes that like I'll be doing something that's not fun. Reconciling a bank credit card is like not fun. But then I put on fun music. I'm like, let's put on some fun music. Let's like lighten the mood so it's not just like reconciliation. Now it's like, oh, I get to listen to music or a podcast I've been looking forward to listening to, right? I'm gonna couple that with something that is more enjoyable to like keep me from spiraling into, man, I hate this and I hate my job and I hate my life because that's not where you want to go.
Yeah. I also, Diana, sorry, I'll talk to you later about hating your job, hating your life.
I mean,
Sorry.
only in those moments, just,
Just those moments.
those moments. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the idea of fun. I never thought of fun as like really being in the moment. I've never thought of like that could be the definition of fun, like of being hyper in the moment. I was thinking about like what's some of the really times where I could think of like I really had a lot of fun. It struck me of a time when I was a kid and we went to this water slide park and we were just going down these long water slides and they were long. Like it would take you, I don't, in my head as a kid, it was like 3 or 4 minutes to get all the way down the slide. And I know it wasn't really that long, but
It for sure was not.
it could
But
not
I
be.
love that your kid brain was like, it was forever.
It was for forever. And then you would run up the stick because you could not. I'm like, I can't wait to get back down there. And then you jump back in there and you go down the slides and you roll. But it's like the sensations of all of that, the water sloshing and you going back and forth and a little bit of the speed and the other kids and all the things. And then you hit the pool at the end with the ultimate rush of cold water. And now let's do that again. And it's fun. And that's that stuff. Like that's what you're doing. Your brain is going, okay, now I can reset. I can stop. I don't have to think about all the stuff. I don't have to get in that fight or flight mode and I don't have to play in the limbic system of like the over emotions. I just have to be. I just have to exist. I just have to breathe right now. That's all I have to do. And that's a very pleasurable place to be in. And then afterwards, yeah, then you can think, okay, now what? Right? I would think about like imagine going to the lake with a bunch of friends and you're out on the water and you're tubing and you're doing all the stuff that's really, really fun. And then afterwards, you're coming back and you sit around the campfire and you have a really good conversation. How many times have you had a great conversation in that moment? Right? Probably a lot of times, right? Why is it that you've had a great conversation in the moment? It's probably because you just everybody mentally reset themselves, got out of their own heads for a decent amount of time, and now you're like now you're ready to go find some rocks, and you'd have a really great conversation about things. Yeah. So I love this topic. I think this was great. I think our team enjoyed the conversation overall to try to figure out how to manage that stuff. Look, what you go through on a day-to-day basis, like some people have jobs where you experience like real trauma on a day-to-day basis, but there's also a thing called vicarious trauma, which is like a slow leak of trauma. And it's just by the things that you see, and it's normal that we see around us, but it just slowly adds up over time. It slowly adds up. And those rocks pile up in our shoes and we start to walk a little bit differently. And anybody who's been to a massage therapist or chiropractor or anything like that, like it does not take much and you get off and it impacts a lot of things. And that impacts us over time. So that's it. Any final thoughts for our listeners here?
I am one of those people that are in my head a lot. And so I just recently started doing this probably in the last, I don't know, few years. And I will say it has like collectively improved how I feel about others, how I feel about work, how I feel about those around me, how I feel about myself. And I think it's because like Philip was saying, when you're in your head, it's just that echo and it can spiral really quickly and you kind of lose yourself in all of that anxiety. And if you do just take a minute to just unpack it, open the closet door, get the rocks out, it really will feel like nothing. It'll feel like, oh, I just talked about this thing. Like it's not a big deal, right? I talked about it, I cried, I talked about it, I let it go, whatever it was. But then it's not that collective buildup that's happening all of the time. And I think it will genuinely improve how you feel about everything around you if you just empty the rocks every once in a while.
That's good. Last thoughts, Philip, for the listeners?
No, yeah, I love this. I love our team. I think just the benefit. I feel really privileged that working with our team does allow this. Even on Monday, I was just really honest about a few specific areas that had been stressing me, and I kind of voiced, over the weekend, I was thinking these things of if X, Y, Z, Q happen, then Z Z beta happens and then the world falls apart. And I know that's not true and you all support, but that's how I felt. And I realized it was impacting how I was, interacting with the team around me. I was not as present for a 2 week period. So I appreciate, that we have a space where we can do that with each other. And if you are at a workplace where you think this is laughable, I would love to do this, but that doesn't exist. I think you are a part of making that change happen, and at least take the time for you to find spaces where you can make this happen, whether that is nature, whether it's therapy, whether it's a friend. These are important things.
I love that point, Philip. If you can create, you influence your team, right? We're all leaders. That's one of the things that we say a lot. If you're listening to this podcast, you're a leader. Congratulations. By the power invested us as People Centric, we are making you a leader. Go do something different at work. Like go if your work is boring and dull and people around you don't do stuff, like challenge that a little bit, bring a little squirt gun to work or something and to squirt somebody or do wear your slippers to work. Diana's shaking her head. Do not bring a squirt gun to work. What? Okay.
Yeah, I just don't do that. No, do
Something
something else.
something fun. Something
Something
fun.
fun. Yeah,
Do
something fun.
some do something fun.
Bring
So
cookies. Everybody loves food.
Oh, people do love cookies. Yeah, I wonder if there's an office around here that has cookies in their office. Yeah, we have cookies in our office that we can heat up every once in a while. That's amazing. So, all right, well, go out there, get out of your own heads. Like, listen, you have been listening to this podcast. So right now you are literally in your own head. You're in a moment where you are taking in things from the outside, but now take a second and process this by not processing it. Don't sit down and think about it. Don't take the notes. Go for a walk. Go do something different right now. Give yourself just 5 minutes to just observe the world around you and just allow yourself to exist in the world. Let your brain reset. You're going to be surprised at how more productive you will be when you get back, and then you'll be able to think about and process this stuff later. So, thanks for joining us on the People Centric podcast. We love you guys. Not all of you, but some of you, most of you. You know who you are. Keep coming back. Let us know if there's something that you'd like us to talk about, and give us feedback. We love to know when you're out there. We love that when we're traveling around and we go to conferences and people stop me and say, "Hey, I love your podcast. This is a lot of fun to listen to. Yeah, this has helped me in these areas." We love those stories. We love to hear from you. So reach out to us. But in the meantime, we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.